December 1st, 2018. Yesterday I said it was November 29th. You work every day, you forget what day it is, I guess sometimes date-wise, and you don't know what day it is, so I gotta know what I gotta do. But so yesterday was the 30th and December begins now. So today I want to talk about, on a rainy day, Frederich Nietzsche. And Nietzsche is a very interesting philosopher. He's one of my favorites. And I always look at it, people are like, are you a follower of Nietzsche? I'm like, no, not necessarily, but I like his work. I really don't follow anyone but me. The gay science is what it's called. It translates as the joyful wisdom of science, but it's a happy science, rhyme and meter, poetry, and the book's written that way. This is a text full of aphorisms. And aphorisms are short writings. They could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph, it could be paragraphs. And today I want to talk, it could be pages for that matter. Aphorisms. Today I want to talk about one of his most famous statements that's been seen, talked about in a line published in 1882. Nietzsche, the student of Schopenhauer, Arthur Schopenhauer was his professor. Schopenhauer, the father of pessimism. And Schopenhauer's World and Will as Representation. There's 2 volumes, The World as Will and Representation. If you want to look at Schopenhauer, you want to read those 2 books. And let me know if you do. It's not that difficult. It ain't like Heidegger or something, you know, but it's not easy. It translates from German to English not so easily. Nonetheless, Nietzsche's Madman, it's just called The Madman, the parable of the madman, some people call it, where Nietzsche goes through and tells us what humanity's doing, right and wrong, and in a marketplace at that. And the statement is made, God is dead, we have killed him, you and I, and we are his murderers because of science and industry and technology. Madman passage is only about 500 words long, so I'm just going to read it. Have you not heard of that madman who lit a lantern in the bright morning hours, ran to the marketplace and cried incessantly, I seek God, I seek God. As many of those who did not believe in God were standing around just then, he provoked much laughter. Has he got lost? Asked one. Did he lose his way like a child? Asked another. Or is he hiding? Is he afraid of us? Has he gone on a voyage, emigrated? Thus they yelled and laughed. The madman jumped into their midst and pierced them with his eyes. Whither is God? He cried. I will tell you. We have killed him. You and I. All of us are his murderers. But how did we do this? How could we drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What were we doing when we unchained this earth from its sun? Whither is it moving now? Whither are we moving? Away from all suns? Are we not continually plunging backwards? Backward, sideward, forward, in all directions? Is there still any up or down? Are we not straying as though through an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is night not continually closing in on us? Do we not need to light lanterns in the early morning hours? Do we hear nothing yet as of the noise of the gravediggers who are burying God? Do we smell nothing as yet of the divine decomposition? Gods too decompose. God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderers of all murderers? What was holiest and mightiest of all the world has yet owned has bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement? What sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear worthy of it? There has never been a greater deed, and whoever is born after us for the sake of this deed, he will belong to a higher history than all history hitherto. Here the madman fell silent, and looked again at his listeners, and they too were silent and stared at him in astonishment. At last he threw his lantern on the ground, and it broke into pieces and went out. I have come too early, he said. My time is not yet. This tremendous event is still on its way, still wandering. It has not yet reached the ears of men. Lightning and thunder require time, and the light of stars requires deeds. Though done, still require time to be seen and heard. This deed is still more distant from them than the most distant stars, and yet they have done it to themselves. It has been related further that same day the madman forced his way into several churches, and there struck up his Requiem Aeternam Deo. Requiem for God. God is dead. Led out and called to account, the madman is always to have said nothing but, what after all are these churches now, if they are not the tombs and sepulchres of God? The reality of Nietzsche is, even Billy Graham, God bless him, he brought a lot of people to God. It's a good thing. Brought a lot of people to the Lord, but Billy Graham, he could never figure Nietzsche out either. Nietzsche claims he's an atheist. He writes a piece early in his career when he was very young and kind of immature still, because he's even immature when he died, in his 60s. He called himself the Antichrist and wrote it up. And so Billy Graham looked at him as an atheist because Schopenhauer was his teacher, who was a hardcore atheist. And his big statement, as I've said many times, is when you die, nothing happens and leaves blow over your grave, and halfway a pretty girl or somebody comes by and throws a rose down now and then and remembers you, or heart aches for you a minute. That's it. There is no afterlife for Schopenhauer. So Nietzsche starts thinking, because he was born into a Christian family, his father a Lutheran minister. So Nietzsche was a PK. He was a preacher's kid. And it messed him up pretty good. He saw the hypocrisy of dogmatic fundamentalism in Germany at its height. And believing more along the lines of someone like Martin Luther, Nietzsche was much more outside of the church than people would like to hear. But nonetheless, when Nietzsche says God is dead, he doesn't mean it literally. Because in the text itself, and you can look, the piece from Walter Kaufmann is the philosopher-editor who put it together. He's also a psychologist, Walter Kaufmann. If you read through the Madman passage, he cites God is dead with a capital G, and then he says gods and God with small case g, which tells me what I thought all along. Nietzsche knew about God. Nietzsche believed, but he couldn't let himself say it because the people around him in Christianity of the day were dogmatic fundamentalists. Bringing up his statement, have there ever been more hysterical little males and females than those in Christianity? Christendom is plagued with ignorance, was his statement. Non-thinking. God's good, you want to think about that, but Nietzsche would say you need to take care of yourself today. So he takes us to the marketplace. The madman goes into the marketplace and cries, "Whither is God? We have killed him, you and I, through science and technology and industry. We combine science and math with a language that's flawed, a language that's inadequate. If you haven't seen the last 6 days, you need to see it, because I'm talking about language a lot in there and its flaws. Pretty much all it's been up to now. Then a little bit is about self-consciousness. So he goes into the marketplace and he says, where's God here? It always reminded me of Christ going into the temple and throwing the money changers out. Very similar in some ways. I know towards the end of his life, Nietzsche was in the marketplace physically for real one day, and a guy was beating a horse really bad that was mired down in the mud. And Nietzsche, kind of out of it by that time of his life, threw his arms around the horse to make the guy stop beating it. So he was having a real conflict with the brutality of human on the planet. So he takes us in to the marketplace where people are buying and selling, and he reminds us that we've killed God in so many ways with industry and technology, created out of a language that's flawed through math and science. Science is good, it helps us, but it's not good intrinsically, because bad things happen all around it and in it. The same as mathematics is more pure in its form, right? You get it, math goes across all disciplines. So mathematics is still a little more pure. We know it's right or wrong. But for language and for the things we invent and create, we do not know if they're right or wrong. Oftentimes during war, we have to scale up so fast, we build and move forward so fast that we never have time to think of the end results of what we're building, what we're forging. And for Nietzsche, he was in the Franco-Prussian War, and the war for the liberation of Germany is, when he was there. And, the reality is he was in an artillery unit, and he lost his hearing, and then he spent 4 years in a medical unit helping the wounded. So Nietzsche saw war on its front lines, as bad or worse than anyone, cannons and horses mixed together. And it's just a horrible thing for him to witness. So I give him some breaks. So he tells us we've killed God by our actions, by our activities, by the way we act every day. We have buried God and we keep him buried because of our behaviors. Now, most of us don't do this. We know that. But the reality is, for Nietzsche, he offers a very straight view of an individual will against the group to see God in a light that humans are stepping on and shoving down, building on top of nature instead of building within nature, not realizing humans are stewards of nature to protect all the other things, animals, plants, rocks, right down to the sand. We use it all. And use sand to make a windshield. You've got to think. So Nietzsche tells us we've killed God with industry, technology. Because language is flawed and airplanes sometimes fall out of the sky and everybody dies. Yeah, you got more chance of being in a car accident. I know they always say it, but an airplane crash, it's almost always fatal. So the reality is we're flawed. It's easy to see how Nietzsche could say this, especially in the late 1800s, edge of the Industrial Revolution in Germany. Schopenhauer being his teacher and coming out in 1820 and 30 saying, industry and technology will kill us. A 40-hour work week takes reflection away from you. You don't have no time to think about anything of meaning. You become a cog in the wheel. Your life is for someone else. It's a will to power and nothing more. Life is a will to power and nothing more. Nietzsche tells us right away, life is a will to power and nothing more. That's what this is about. That's why we're here. And that's why people have killed God in so many ways. God's been killed 1,000,000 times, maybe 1,000,000,000. It's hard to tell. He may die again today. I know one thing for sure, divine intervention can't be proved or not proven. Miracles happen through natural theology. We can discuss it and witness them. But the reality is, it's about living here and now, being a humanist first, helping the others, thinking and reflecting on our being as humans in nature. And then when we create in the future, we'll be careful. We'll be safer. We're already doing those things, but there's a lot more to do, i.e. the forest in California and all the lives and property gone and damaged. It's the way it is. You don't take care of nature, you're not a steward of nature, you'll pay for it in the end. And we did. And the idea is to stem the flow. Nietzsche warned us years ago that industry and technology was a demon, just like Schopenhauer told him. And today it's encapsulated in the internet too. So I hope you'll have a good day, y'all. Peace out. Keep reading philosophy.